of what I do and the introduction. So what we're going to do now, we're going to talk about power sites as a little introduction to the pyramid work. So a power site or a sacred site or a power place essentially is a place where the ancient building traditions of all cultures recognized locations of high vibration, of naturally occurring vortexes, and then they would use those spaces as places for ritual and connection and healing, and for community, and for really advancing their understanding of the universe through ritual, and that could be using psychotropic herbs or sound, or prayer or dance, any of these forms in these spaces. So this site we're seeing here is in the Orkney Islands. We have a ring of stone around a henge structure. So we have a ditch and bank and stones. So this is one of tens of thousands of sites around the world that have recognized this particular location as being a place of power, of very high vibration, and they've enhanced that through the use of stone in a particular geometric configuration. So there's many of these, and so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk about one in particular because I've been building at the moment. And so this is a medicine wheel, and this is a Native American structure, but we've been building them in the UK for the last year with a very, very Celtic flavour. And so what I like to show, I'll show some of those in a moment. So essentially the medicine wheel is a sacred structure, is a sacred space utilizing stone. In the center there will be a vortex point, and this structure utilizes the universal symbol of the sun, so solar cross. And the solar cross has many different associations. Begins with the four directions, but also then in the Native American tradition, the four winds and different animals, different sacred animals. But also then it represents the earthly plane, mediating between the lower world, the underworld, and the upper world. And this symbol was then central to the cosmology and the iconography within those Native American and also South American traditions as well. I did a temazcal, which was a sweat lodge 1 week ago, and the sweat lodge was a space where you go into a confined dome space, and there is hot stones placed in the middle of the sweat lodge, and you sweat and you sing as a group. And the whole geometry of that temazcal, that sweat lodge, was based on this four directions. So so this was from Mexico, but it's also North America, but also this symbol was also found within the Celtic tradition as a Celtic cross.
Yeah, I think all the shamanic traditions have this symbol, and I think it's very important for healing and for a cosmology, a cosmovision, let's say. It's a way of perceiving the world and the existence of the universe. So, I think it's a very interesting thing to talk about related to healing that we're going to talk about also.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, because one of this cross being the solar symbol, the sun not only being a symbol of life, actually is actually the prime instigator of life force, within our reality, whether it's a hydrogen-based planet pumping out magnetic and electric waves. And I think with all of this, we recognize that we exist within a living electric being, a conscious universe in which these electromagnetic waves and other waves we're going to talk about as well exist and give us life. And I think all the ancient traditions recognize this, even if they didn't have the same words that we have now for these frequencies. Okay, so within the medicine wheels that I design, we have a lot of harmonic information, but also when they're located on central vortexes. It's like taking a device like a phone and plugging it into the wall. We have an upwelling. We choose a very particular location of crossings of underground water lines and faults and earth energy lines. and that creates a vortex. And then the geometry of the form actually then creates this rectangle, creates another counterpoise geometry. So you have one vortex going up from the earth and the other coming down, and creates a lot of stability. So it creates a very balanced place for meditation, for healing. And also with water here. Yeah, Maria?
When you talk about vortex, because there are maybe people watching us that don't know exactly what a vortex is. You talked about power places and how a vortex is found, and then you build this, and this can be built anywhere. But maybe people are wondering, maybe I do have a vortex somewhere, or I can use it. What is it really, a vortex? As you mentioned.
So a vortex is, if you think about when you fill up the sink with water and you take the plug out, and the water goes down the plug, and it creates a spiral. That essentially, that is the vortex action. That's the rotation of that water being sucked down into the sink. And essentially, the same shape, that spiral shape, is created whenever there's two lines. When there's more than two lines, so here, this is where we have a cross. So if you look from the top, in the center point between of those two lines, a vortex is created. So a spiral action is created. And so the more lines you have crossing, as you see in the blue drawing in the front here, and the larger the size of the lines, the greater the size of the vortex. And so all sacred sites are powered by vortexes, and these vortexes can have different qualities depending on the type of energy lines that move through them.
Exactly. So we can have vortexes. We can have vortexes with water, with energy lines, with the electromagnetic field. What are those lines made of? Because we're going to talk also about power sites and the ley lines. So maybe if you can introduce a little bit of that, because I think all of these sacred sites that we're going to talk about, and the pyramids, etc., they're built exactly in these places. So it's interesting to know. Exactly.
So if you see, essentially what happens is that they can be, the energy lines can have different causes. So the drawing here, imagine these are underground water lines all crossing in one place. What happens is there is a physical stream of water in the underground, and then above that there are walls of energy, which are lines, which are the actual lines that come up. So it's the energy that crosses over, and when they cross, then the vortex is a crossing of that energy line. But equally, it can come from other sources as well. It can come from earth energy lines, which are lines of standing waves. So essentially, acoustic energy also manifest in the same way. And also, there can be lines of energy which come from fault lines between where the earth opens up, and these lines can create subtle energy waves. So essentially, what we're talking about is our very, very subtle waves. They can be electromagnetic, they can be electric, they can be magnetic, they can be acoustic, and they can also be even subtler than that. And then once there is a large amount of those lines, it attracts other lines. So the more powerful the sacred space, the larger the lines, and vice versa. You have a lot of lines, and then the space has more power, and can be more sacred. And then over time, what would happen is that place would then have a healing sanctuary might be built there, would then turn into a temple, and then over time that temple will then turn into a larger temple complex, and that might then become a famous temple that we know today. As greater structures are built over there, and the use of buildings which are designed with the harmonics of the sacred templates of the universe to enhance those energies, and then we get the famous temples of the ancient world. And usually there would be a well or a sacred pool, and in those places we then have sacred healing temples, places where there would be water would come from the ground with healing properties. People would go there for fertility rites and for healing.
Exactly. Some places are marked like with trees, with wells, with buildings, with pyramids, with sculptures, with like it's always been marked as a place because some things happen there. And those things that happen there is what have made them sacred for humans. But it's a place for growth. And you're going to talk about how this enhances the growth of, for example, vegetables that we're going to talk about. But some huge, amazing trees grow in these vortices, as you have said. So it's great that we start to know about the earth energies and how they build these spaces. And as you were saying, how buildings can benefit and use this buildings or structures like these stone circles or these medicine wheels can use and direct this like pyramids to actually have a function.
That's right. That's
Exactly.
right. So I'm just going to show a couple of examples of medicine wheels we've built in the UK. So this is a Celtic medicine wheel, which is in Somerset, at a place called the Earthlight Medicine Garden, which I'm a director of research at. And we have a classical medicine wheel design. And this is a medicine garden. And now the 4 sections of this medicine wheel are now covered in plants and flowers and herbs, medicine herbs. And this structure is aligned to the solstices, to the equinoxes, has a vortex in the center, has all the classical elements. And when we've been using it, we've noticed many different effects where people have been able to become centered, to become more still in the meditation. We've had instances of people getting messages from the planet, from Gaia itself, really beautiful messages, channeling and high dimensional information has come through very, very quickly for people with that ability. And the graphic on the right shows an instance where we did an experiment. We had a person standing in the middle, then we had a person on the 4 directions, north, south, east, and west. And after several minutes of that person being in the center, there was a wave, a physical, not a way that every person felt that spread out from the center. Essentially, there was a force built up, and it got to a maximum point, and then it almost burst outwards in all directions. And it was, and some of the more centered people even were pushed backwards. And so here, where we're seeing this is a phenomena of gravity being affected by the waves coming from the center. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more later on. And this is from a fairly small structure, but you can see that once we have these stones in place, that and the geometry and the location and utilizing the harmonic dimensions, the structure is actually like a musical device. So all the circles you see here are harmonic frequencies. So essentially that structure is a musical instrument which is playing the music of the land and is then giving those healing frequencies back to the land to enhance the crop growth and then to balance the land and then to create a place for healing and connection. This is the most recent one I've built, which is of a similar size. This is in Devon, and this is built only a month ago. And this one is built on the side of a hill, and you can see here it's aligned to the summer solstice, and there's different circles there, where it says in the center the circle relating to DNA. Each of the circles have very specific elements, and it's too much to go into now. We can maybe do that on another call. Essentially, different frequencies are of the circles, the different dimensions are combined in the same way that a Chinese herbalist might mix up the different frequencies within herbs. You can then combine those frequencies to then create very specific healing qualities at the center of the wheel.
Yeah, I guess it's like music. The different frequencies of the music harmonize different parts of the body and different chakras. So I guess that's how you build these sites precisely, choosing the geometry and the frequency that it's going to enhance. And
that's correct. That's correct. Yeah, the center of the circle will come through and activate all of the chakras, and then the one you saw previously has a very particular potent effect on the throat chakra. We're still waiting. We're doing experiments to find out which centers this wheel actually works on. But then also you see here, we have within the alignment going from left to right across the photo. This is the alignment from the center to the sun. There are other elements created, or there's another vortex appeared. So there is, as well as the center, there's a secondary vortex place, which is very particular to the sun's energy and the sun's alignment. And then also you can see in the foreground the large standing stone, of which there's 5 in this structure. This is granite, and so it's a high quartz content, and we're going to be talking more about that later on in the presentation as being important in the way that these structures were built, and the science of actually utilizing electrical charge within these spaces.
Exactly. And also to make a note, I know you do, and we're going to talk about it, you do workshops to build these sites and to teach people how to use the medicine wheel and how to build these things. So we're going to talk about it later. I'm just telling it like a drop here so if someone is interested, just hang on to the end of the video.
Yeah, that's right. There's a couple of instances where we'll be taking people into these circles and then showing them how they work, and then explaining how they can then build them at home for their own spaces and for their own gardens.